Okay, can you hear me? You guys there? Shoot. Did I do that wrong? Hello? Oh, crap. What a...
I can hear everyone but
hello.
Mike and Kason.
No.
Yeah, we can't.
They
Nothing
can't hear
at
us.
all?
If you're wondering what making an
Okay.
indie game is like, it's
Good
like
enough?
this.
Okay.
You have a bunch of devices.
Is it fixed?
People are working asynchronously
Yeah.
in different states.
Is it
Yes.
fixed?
Yep, it's fixed.
Yes.
Okay. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the State of the Arc podcast. My name is Mike.
My name's Kason.
We have a lot of guests for this episode. I talked about this in the video I made last week. We have a lot of indie devs with us today. So I'm going to introduce them one by one. Okay, let's start with Pat Holloman from Quartet. He's been on the show many times in the past for Xenogears and other things like that. Pat, say something so your picture comes up on the screen here.
Yeah, hi. Yes, we're not here to talk about Xenogears for some reason. People should always be talking about Xenogears. But yes, we're here to talk about what it's like to be an indie dev and our recent release, Quartet.
That's right. All right, and then we have Chris Guin from
Howdy.
Geo Mythica. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right.
It's good. It's good. It's been a long time since you and I in particular have chat. We used to chat pretty regularly a few years back.
Yeah, back during COVID days and before that. Yeah,
exactly. Loving your game, by the way, Geo Mythica. It's great. So we're going to talk about that. And then we've got Positive Concept, Alan and Joseph, who are developing Shrine's Legacy.
Hi, I'm Alan Gabbard. I am the creative director of Shrine's Legacy.
And I'm Joe. I'm the technical director.
Awesome.
Very nice.
And
Happy to be here.
yeah, we got Shrine's Legacy coming out on October 7th. So really soon. It's our first big release.
Yep.
One day
Everything's
after
looking really great.
one day after my birthday.
Yeah. And then
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's a
Nice.
good present for me.
Roach Games, Kingdoms of the Dump with us as well.
Hey guys, Roach here. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah. Okay.
Great.
So let me preface kind of what I wanted to do with this. I guess I don't even think I've communicated to you exactly what my idea was for this conversation.
We're just talking to indie devs.
This is the way we roll.
How can it go wrong?
100% off the cuff, just like figure it out, wing it on the day. That's the way we roll. But no, my thought here was, I think particularly with our show, there's a lot of people who watch, I mean, me included as the host of the show, who might have thought at some point in life, I think I want to make a game. In fact, we used to mess around with RPG Maker back in the day.
Yeah, RM2K. Yeah.
Yeah,
That was
exactly.
way back in the day.
Yeah. So things have changed a lot. And indie game development in terms of just like the landscape has come a really long way. And there's a ton of competition there. There's a ton of really, really great work being done.
Yeah.
The tools, I think, are becoming more accessible, but I think a lot of people who might have that thought might not understand the realities. And I think what particularly prompted me to this is as I was going through, because I was a backer on all of the Kickstarters for games here that had Kickstarters. So Shrine's Legacy, Quartet, and Kings of the Dump. Chris, I don't believe you did a Kickstarter for Geo.
I did not. No, so you don't have to feel guilty at all.
Okay, great. Okay,
Withholding your
because I
funds.
would have
Right.
for sure. Because I loved Adventures of Chris, which was your first game. So
I
remember playing that.
am amazed at Geo Mythica. I actually beta tested it before it came out. Amazed like how good it is and how quickly Chris made it after Adventures of Chris. I mean, given that it's an RPG, like even in NES, like it turned out great. I loved it.
RPGs are a little bit difficult.
Just a little bit.
So anyway, I was going through those Kickstarters, kind of looking through, like I had even forgotten at what level I had backed and things like that. But the delivery date or the expected delivery date on a lot of these was 2022. And we are in 2025 now. So there obviously, it ended up being a lot longer than you guys expected. And so I wanted to get into a conversation about what it's actually like to develop an indie game, particularly on the budgets that you guys were working with. You know, this is really different than, say, There's a lot of games that are kind of like pitched as indie titles, but they have a lot more funding than like what you guys were actually working with.
Yeah.
So
That's right.
with the costs for art and small teams that you guys were working with, and I'm sure working other jobs, either part-time or full-time during development, I'm sure a lot of hurdles came up, and so I kind of wanted to get into that a little bit. But maybe before we do that, what was the inspiration behind each of the titles that we're talking about? So we'll start with Pat on Quartet, and then we'll move to Chris with Geo Mythica, Joe and Alan for Shrine's Legacy, and then Roach for Kingdoms of Depth. Like, when the idea for this game, like, when did that come into your mind? And did you expect such a long journey to get to the finish line?
Well, to answer the second question first, no, definitely not. We in no way expected it to take this long, and probably many team members would not have participated if we had known. So it's good that we had no idea how long it would take. We were making steady progress the whole way, but when you make an RPG, especially a JRPG, it's just so much bespoke content. Everything is bespoke. Every dungeon is handcrafted. Every monster, every scene. There's very little that's procedural and can be reused or scaled. And so that's just that's why it takes so long. And even though procedural games are not simple either, I'm not. That is not what you should take away from that. My answer to this question. It takes a very long time. How we got started was after Shadows of Adam. My producer Tyler Muir swore off making video games forever, and then 4 months later he was like, "Let's make a game."
Okay.
And that game became Quartet, and he had this old RPG Maker game that he worked on called Channel Changer. With some of the RPG Maker OGs may have even played a snippet of. And the idea was 4 separate stories, like totally 4 different stories. Like one was a Western, one was a comedy, one was just set in the modern day, and one was like a post-apocalypse. And so he said, can we take that concept and make it into a serious, full-fledged retail game? And I said, well, sure, let's take a look at that. And I said, well, 4 stories. What's an interesting lens for looking at the number 4, since that's our constraint, right? When we talk, Mike and I had done a video about constraints in storytelling with Xenogears, right? Yeah. Where Takahashi and Saga had these 2 really different ideas, and then they brought them together, and the constraints made the story unique and interesting. And so we were to do the same thing, because I've spent my entire life trying to become Tetsuya Takahashi and not succeeding. So I was like, okay, what's an interesting lens on the number 4? I said, well, what about Greek thought? So in ancient Hellenic thought, you have the 4 elements. That's very JRPG. And you have the 4 humors, which is the 4 personality types, right? You have the phlegmatic, choleric, melancholic, and sanguine. I said, okay, we get 4 characters right there, right? We assign, each of the 4 main characters, one of those personality types. And then we had our 4 stories, which, comedy, modern day, post-apocalypse, and Western. And then I also took the concept of each of the narratives follows, and a lot of the setting follows the idea of, there's 3 kinds of rhetoric in Aristotle. There's or rhetorical strategies, which is appeal to logos, appeal to ethos, right. Appeal to pathos, right? Which, appeal of, the sense of reason. Ethos is a little more complicated. It's like appealing to the qualifications of a person, but in ancient times that would have been like, you need to be the right kind of person with all of the nastier implications of that. The ethos in ancient times would have included both, having a good right education and qualifications, but also being, from the right city, state, and the right family. And so that became part of it. And that's part of how the villains got built. And then we added the more modern concept of bathos, which is a sudden shift in mood or tone. And that was for the comedy story. And so we applied those concepts to the stories and the settings of these 4 different stories that begin the game. And then, we have the 4 elements and the 4 humors. And, I won't spoil too much, but we kind of ran with the idea of Hellenic thought being woven through the game in many places. And even some characters will speak things that may or may not be direct quotes from ancient great people, and among other real historical characters who speak direct quotes in the game. But weaving that in and using the constraints and really sticking to those constraints made it much easier to create the narrative, because it cuts so many possibilities down. Right, that's the vital thing, is that when you begin any story, you have all the possibilities in the world. You could do anything, but cutting those down and obeying the constraints and saying, "Oh, we're going to look at this through the lens of, Hellenic and Outer Sicilian thought in particular, and tell the story that way," really allowed us to really rapidly create a vision, and then hit the ground running with that vision. And if you look back at our game design document that we made in late 2017 and early 2018. Almost nothing changed from that time to the present.
Wow,
there were things that needed to change. That's true of every game. Things that needed to be iterated or made better. But the plan we had, we stuck with it basically the whole way. So there's never really a huge pivot, because Tyler and I had sent back this email thread when we were both at work, just emailing each other at our day jobs with like, what about this idea and this idea? And so we had like a 760 entry email thread in which we hashed out how the game would operate. And then once the GDD was done, we were able to entice our programmers, Tyler, the other Tyler, and Pete, and that was when it all started to come together.
Okay, quick
Very cool.
follow-up. So Tyler said he, after Shadows of Adam, swore off making video games, obviously because it's really tedious and difficult and can be very frustrating. But I guess my first question is, how long did Shadows of Adam take to develop?
I wasn't a part of that, but I was getting updates from them the whole way, and mostly from talking to Tyler. And they started in 2013. I want to say late 2013, maybe early 2014, and they released in early 2017.
So about 5 years.
So,
Like
so about three to four. I'm not sure exactly what the start date was, or they didn't really ramp up for a while.
Okay.
But I know they had like an alpha in like 2015 or 2016, and they were waiting for art and doing a lot of polish for a long time. So they were able to get through that pretty quickly. But even a quick small production was still 3 to 4 years. Yeah. If that gives you an indication of what it's like. And at this time, everyone, I think, except the art director, had a day job. The art director was between jobs. But only for a brief period of time. They all had day jobs, as we did on Quartet. We all had day jobs the entire way as well.
So the fact that he swore off and then came back is kind of at the center of what I'm trying to get at, I feel like, with this conversation. There's this enormous passion that I think all of us have for games. Like, we grew up with them. They inspired us in ways that changed the way we think about the world. And, is what was the driving force behind, I want to do something like that. I want to create an experience like the one I had with whatever your particular favorite game was. And I want to, be a creator and deliver an experience like that for other people. So at what point did Tyler get that back, if you've talked to him about it, and why did the desire to go through the hell of development become worth it again? And speak for yourself too, Pat. Like, what gets you through, those really difficult parts of development?
Well, sure. I mean, I can't speak to Tyler's internal conditions during the time, but he swore off ever making anything again sometime in like February or March of 2017 when the Shadows of Adam released, and then the DLC. Although the DLC was I think a calmer affair. But again, I wasn't part of the team. I was just talking to them and getting updates. And then he and I kept talking about RPGs because you can pretty much always talk to me about RPGs. My love of RPGs is a matter of record. Yeah. I think it was June. I said I was like, I was bored. I had just finished my book series Reverse Design. Yeah. And so I finished that. I finished the writing. We later get published and did some editing in 2018, but the writing of the series was done. And that took me 6 or 7 years which, that was a book series. So, I had incremental progress that I could release to the world. It wasn't quite like a game that takes 7 years, but after that, I was looking for a new project. I didn't have kids yet. And when you don't have kids, the world is your oyster.
You can do anything.
I'll take a gigantic new hobby out.
wild.
No problem. No worries. Right? What could ever go wrong? And so, I was like, oh, I would really love to make a game. We were seeing a lot of research at the time. I think Jason Schreier's book had just come out. They talked about DLC being such a key strategy for indies. And I was just like, let me pitch you another DLC for Shadows of Adam. And I had very little hope of it actually being made, but I just wanted to show what I could do. And, part of the reason I wrote Reverse Design was to find people who could be creative and equals with me, right? To create a work and let people see your pedigree, and then hopefully they reach out to you wanting to do something later. And that's what Tyler did. And so I was like, okay, let me write up this very silly, it was serious, but very long shot DLC pitch. And of course it didn't go anywhere. Nobody wanted to work on the game anymore. And totally understandable. Right? Maybe I think the art director did, but it was totally understandable that nobody wanted to do this. But then about a month after that, I think it was late June or early July. He probably June, because I remember we were at TMG in Philadelphia. And that's where I met him. We already had a pitch for it, where I pitched one of their other programmers. But by then we were just, Tyler approached me, said, I've got this game, a concept, and I already talked about that. But I said, okay. So it was about 4 months after the game's release. He had burnout, which we all get, right? Totally normal amount of burnout. He had 2 jobs. He had during the course of Shadows of Adam's development, he had joined the Navy and gone to boot camp.
Oh, wow.
Which is something that not everyone else on the team did, right? Demanding, something very demanding. Funny story, during the course of Quartet's development last summer, he joined the Army and went to Army boot camp.
Oh, my goodness.
he chose to play development on the absolute hardest setting.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So maybe don't join 2 branches of the military while trying to develop a game, because that might make it harder, as Tyler could attest.
Sure.
But he did it. He's a soldier, literally and figuratively.
Yeah.
And so, that was the source of his burnout. It was a tough time, but he pulled through Shadows of Adam and then somehow got right back on the horse, which impresses me to no end.
Yeah, that's great. Let's pivot over to Chris real quick. So I played your first game, Adventures of Chris, which was kind of a platforming game. And this is obviously a very different, Geo Mythica is very different from that. Geo Mythica is a action RPG, kind of a hybrid system, command/action based combat. So what was the inspiration for this project? And did you suffer kind of a similar kind of burnout after Adventures of Chris? And then what kind of inspired you to get back on the horse again, if that was the case?
Yes and no on the burnout question, but I would say as far as like where Geo Mythica comes from, I mean, you could probably tell if you had played both games. There's a lot of overlap between the two. Well, I mean, I've always been an RPG guy. Like I had been a patron of Resonant Arc, like going back a long ways. I just love RPGs, and I knew I wanted to make one. I just thought it was such a big one that I really shouldn't try like a big genre. So I thought, oh, I'll make a platformer. That'll be much faster. And it was 6 years. So when that one was done, I'm like, if I'm ever going to make an RPG, I just need to do it. And my original plan, I was kind of working on it towards the end of development of Adventures of Chris, right? Because I didn't have Burnout yet, right? I was just like, okay, I'm so excited. I'm going to start the new one. And I knew it was going to be an RPG. And I kind of figured it would be like a direct sequel to Adventures of Chris. And then like, so after Adventures of Chris came out, you do get like this, there's a rush of like the initial attention. And then it kind of, as it starts to fade, you sort of get like, oh man, like I kind of missed the stimulation of it. And you do realize there was just like it was a lot out of you, and it takes a little bit of time to recover. So I started thinking like, I don't want my next game to dominate me like that. And so that's kind of why like the art style is the 8-bit style that it is. I kind of pulled back. I have a day job, which I like doing it, but it means that it takes me a long time to develop a game. And my thought was, well, maybe for the next one, I'll kind of pull it back, and it'll be, a little bit lower production values, I guess, in Adventures of Chris, but that would make it more achievable. And because I wanted to make an RPG, I wanted it to be relatively long, and so the inspiration was games like Dragon Quest III,
Nice.
Terra Enigma, in terms of the fact that this is Earth, right? But instead of being like kind of like Earth, like, how about Earth?
At the actual Earth.
Yeah, how about just all the way Earth? Yeah, and I thought, because I'm a big geography nerd, I love just learning about places. So I would just randomly pick a town in India and be like, this is going to be a level, and just like learn all kinds of stuff about it, and build a dungeon in it, and just like kind of do the Saturday morning cartoon thing with it. It's just it was a lot of fun to make. I think what you're talking about, like as an indie dev, like I'm going to make games one way or another, just because that's what I like to do. With Adventures of Chris, I had a publisher. I spent some money on it, it did all right, I would say, like, but not enough to where I'm like, hey, this is going to be my career now by any stretch of the imagination. So I was just like, I'm gonna keep making games, but I'm gonna hopefully be able to make them at my own pace, and kind of just because one thing I think I tell people is, like, your motivation is actually a precious resource, when you're an indie dev, because it takes a long time, and you have to conserve it, right? You got to find ways of making it fun the whole time, which I know sounds ridiculous in some ways, but like if you get bored, if you get frustrated, you'll check out. Because there's no one, and I didn't have a Kickstarter either. So I wasn't going to disappoint anyone other than like the people that knew the game was coming out. I wasn't going to disappoint anyone if I didn't make the game. So, to get it finished, you have to figure out how to sustain your motivation level and interest level. So,
yeah. You're the single developer too, which I think is not the case. I mean, I know Alan and Joe are the two on Shrines Legacy. Roach, you have someone else working on Kingdoms and Empathies, right?
Yeah, and we have a team of like 5 people still, and our contractors and stuff.
Yeah. Okay, so Chris, I believe you're the only one here who was like this single developer making a game.
I did have an artist for both games, although Kyle didn't come on until later on in Geo Mythica to help me clean stuff up and bring the quality up a little bit. But
so you did have an artist, one other person who came on and helped. Okay.
Kyle did those Ninja Gaiden cutscenes, didn't he?
Yeah, Kyle did all the Ninja Gaiden cutscenes. Yep. He's an actual artist as opposed to an engineer pretending to be a pixel artist. Yeah.
So did you do like the character pixel art and the animations for Geo Mythica for the most part, other than those cutscenes and things, or was that him too?
So no. Well, I did. So it's possible that the draft you played, Mike, when I was showing off like very early alpha builds, might have been entirely my art, which I apologize for. But then so Kyle overlaid everything. So like the basic like general, how big the characters are and their general poses were done before, but like he cleaned it a lot up and kind of added I think a nice level of charm and stuff like that. So I don't want to.
Yeah. I wasn't aware of that, so that's good to know. But every other aspect of the game. The coding, the level design, the music, everything else was done by you. I mean, how exhausting is that to try to juggle like all of that stuff? I mean, like, and how do you, because, like I might, if I were to jump in to try to make a game today, like maybe I could handle music and maybe I could handle some design elements, but I've never done like really any level of coding or anything like that. How much background in all of those areas did you have, and how much did you have to learn through the process?
So I had some background in music, and I'm a computer science major, so I knew how to program coming in. Had to learn a lot about Unity. I'm still learning a lot about Unity, and I did not enjoy any of that, but it's one of the things you got to do. I had to learn a lot of just toolkits and concepts, and yeah, like making 8-bit music is different from like playing on a keyboard, right? So you got to learn trackers, and that was kind of fun. Like I love 8-bit stuff and that. So like sometimes learning a new thing is fun, and sometimes it's horrifying. It just kind of depends on how it feels to you. So.
Mm-hmm. So did you enjoy pretty much all those aspects of development, or is there any one of them that you don't love to do?
I enjoy writing the songs. I absolutely hated laying it out in the tracker once I learned how to use the tracker and like, oh, this is cool. And it got a lot less cool when you realize just how incredibly tedious it is.
Oh man.
So mostly the way I got through a lot of stuff was I just constantly whined to Pat and Tyler. Whenever I had to write a song, I would just complain about like how lazy I felt and how much work it was. I don't know, but like there's a lot of tedious parts to developing a game. Like I think like I know better than to think that making a game is like playing a game. Like I know better, and yet like I still kind of get a little bit blindsided by just the amount of like that you got to do on all these different parts, like designing a map, right? Like, okay, I got these cool ideas and you're drawing it on paper, and that's like, okay, now actually like put it on in the tiles, lay those out. And it's just, I mean, I'm sure there may be better ways of doing it than I was doing it, but it just took forever. Really? And I'm amazed I got it done. Really.
That's okay, let's pivot over to Alan and Joseph real quick. So this is your first title, correct? Shrine's Legacy?
Yeah, our first commercial game.
Mm-hmm.
So what experience did you have before going into this, and how much of it have you guys had to pick up through the process?
Let's just say we've been working on this game for a very long time.
So let's say this version of the game started in 2016, and from 2016 to 2020 was a lot of learning. And then when we did our Kickstarter, it was a lot of people were like, oh man, co-op Secret of Mana looking style game, but a lot of our peers were telling us, but you got to do better with the art. And I think that's the biggest thing we've learned is art is king when it comes to standing out in the indie dev sphere.
With RPGs in particular.
Yeah, with RPGs.
And probably some other genres too. But there are games where art isn't as important, but RPGs are not generally one of them.
Yeah. So if we want to say we started on this version of the game in 2016, so it's about 9+ years of development for this version of the game, it is today.
And why we say this version of the game is because for a long time we were learning how to make the game. We actually started making the game in high school, and we're 34 now.
So, but we started. We started well before 2016, but we were going to college. I had gotten a house to pay for.
Yeah,
and just a lot of doing other stuff in life. And then 2016 is when we really started cracking down. And then the pandemic happened. But I mean, I remember the whole spiel was we met each other in health class, and I was talking to somebody else about Super Nintendo games, and I think Joe was sitting in front of me, and he turns around and starts just talking about all these Super Nintendo games. I've never even heard of a bunch of them. So we could like kind of trade certain games. I remember I told him about Dragon Quest VIII. He needs to check that out. And he told me about a lot of Super Nintendo.
Like Illusion of Gaia.
Illusion of Gaia, actually.
Oh, there you go. Nice.
Yeah, and and one day after that encounter, he comes to me and says, "Can you write me a story for this space shooter game I'm working on?" That never panned out, but I pitched to him an idea I had for a story that I had made up when I was a kid to my brother, like I would tell him stories before bedtime. I would make stories up. And so I would tell him these bedtime stories. And I had one called The Sword of Shrine. And I kind of took that basic generic fantasy concept and I was like, oh, let's do a simple idea for our first RPG.
Yeah, simple idea.
It'll be simple. It'll be easy. And no, it wasn't easy. It wasn't simple.
Yeah, we thought it was simple. And even the original idea that we had, we cut multiple like major mechanics that we had in mind. Like you can choose an element right now. Our original idea was you can combine 2 different elements at the same time.
Actually, the Sword of Shrine was supposed to turn into different weapons originally. But we needed
we were a little over ambitious.
Dang. Yeah, I got to play that game for a little bit today.
Yeah.
Really, really fun. But if each one of those was a different weapon, that would have been difficult.
Yeah. Not to mention, like, mechanically for the player, we didn't realize just how much the player would have to think about with combining elements and changing weapons and who knows what else we had at the time.
It was actually Joe. He played Undertale in like 2016, actually. So go figure. Is when we started kind of figuring out how we need to make this game better, and a lot of it came down to just keep it simple, like cut back on a lot of things. Like
keep it simple
and
keep it secret.
Even though it's not
keep it safe.
Even though it's not a simple game to make, it is intuitive and simple to play, I think.
Yeah.
At least compared to what we had in mind before. And
theming. Like, we didn't have a clear theme in mind until we played Undertale. And it's like, wait a minute, this game is like, part of what makes it so good is it is very clear with its theming. So like, maybe we should just like actually try to focus in on a few small ideas.
I think the theme of any creative project is the secret ingredient to doing something well, because like getting a theme for like a film or an album or a video game, a book, whatever, it just brings the whole creative process together.
Yeah.
And people don't talk about that enough, or at least from my recollection when I was younger, like I didn't feel like it was drilled enough into my head in school that you need to get a theme like on everything you do creatively. So yeah, that helped us a lot. Undertale taught us a lot about theming and simplifying things.
Yeah. I imagine that that is where a lot of people who are either making their first game or who are maybe not super experienced in game development run into problems is, and you know, that we've talked about this a lot, even just with young Japanese developers in interviews and stuff, having these grand ideas and like all this cool stuff they want to do, and then learning through the process, like you have to narrow that down into, like you guys are saying, like a key kind of core theme or element, and then strengthen that as much as possible, rather than trying to work in all your great ideas. Right?
Yeah, you can keep those different various aspects of the game, but as long as they're all pointing towards a theme and working towards this unity that helps bring everything together. Otherwise, if they're kind of doing their own thing, you're just going to end up with a mess.
Yeah.
It's kind of a question we asked at one point was, does this idea help strengthen our theming? If no, remove.
Yeah. And we're a little insane. So the fact that we worked on this for so long,
I don't recommend it.
No, like I don't know why we stuck with. I don't know why we didn't give up. I guess we're just really determined. We will never.
We also have had each other. So
yeah, I mean, we live in the same house, so
we keep each other working.
We will never, ever work on a game like this ever again for this amount of time. But we have a better idea of what we're doing now, especially since we've met great devs like Patrick, Roach, and Chris. We've met all these wonderful people who've taught us a lot, and we should have been doing that from the beginning. We should have just been getting our work out there and just networking and learning from other people who know what they're doing and have experienced this.
It's just been one long process, so we've just learned very little by little. I would recommend make lots of smaller games and learn little by little while actually releasing games, as opposed to like learning while you're making a game and keep remaking your own game over and over.
Yeah, that's a hard one. Because at some point, and correct me if I'm wrong, but at some point you're using an 8-year-old version of Unity because to update it would break all of your stuff.
Sure,
And so
yeah.
you're just stuck making it after an old, I don't know if that's exactly how Unity works, but I know that's how RPG Maker worked. Like you weren't able to just like plug
Carry
it
that
into the
over
new
into the
update.
new one, yeah.
It's like, you're stuck with what you have.
You can update in Unity for the most part.
After
So,
8 years though, like really? And everything still works?
You would do it gradually.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would be careful doing it, but it tries to let you do that.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. That's good. They've come a long ways.
So the project file that was the original file of our game was made in Game Maker 8.1, I think, which
Okay.
I don't even know when that was, but it was a long, long time ago. And then we updated that to Game Maker Studio 1, and then Game Maker Studio 2 came out. We updated it to Game Maker Studio 2.
Mhm.
It's amazing that there's still anything left from that old build, but that is actually where it started.
If you look-
kind of crazy.
If you look in the game, like the outside, when you're outside, you can see clouds going overhead, like
Yeah.
cloud shadows.
Uh-huh.
That's like from version 8.1 of Game Maker.
Mm.
It's like the
Oh,
only thing that survived.
That's pretty
But
cool.
yeah.
With that, the graphic got adjusted, but yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
Wow.
Okay, so speaking about theming, this is where I think it's a great moment to pivot over to Kingdoms of the Dump.
Yes.
This might be, I think, my favorite aspect of the game that you're making, Roach, is how you've taken from your experiences as working as a janitor and a custodian and used that as inspiration for the entire world that you've created. Can you talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, they say write what you know.
Of course.
But I was an RPG Maker kid. I was using the one for PlayStation 1 where you actually had to use like the controller to do everything.
Yes.
It was horrible.
Oh my gosh.
Once I figured out like you could do it on the PC in like the early 2000s, that changed everything for me. So I've been making games on there forever, just small personal projects as for fun. And me and my writing partner were actually working on an Earthbound fan game made in RPG Maker 2003.
Nice.
From 2011-ish to maybe 2013. That's kind of when we were mostly working on that. And I was working at a janitor at the time. And we were working on one level in that game that was a trash-themed level, like a junkyard. And we kind of looked at each other and were like, I was already pulling from my job working as a janitor, and I was like, this is pretty good. So we came up with an idea for a children's book that was going to be called Kingdoms of the Dump. And it was going to be a super short, something on the side of while we were making our fan game to put out, because we thought there really was something there. But I got so enamored with building the world that I started instantly pivoting to what I know, RPG Maker, and I made an RPG Maker demo in 2014 of Kingdoms of the Dump, and that kind of got us going.
So that's 2014. I mean, we're talking about 11 years ago at this point. You've been working on this for more than a decade.
That was the original concept, and I built an RPG Maker as a proof of concept for the idea to try to recruit a team to maybe help make a commercial product, because I've always wanted to make a real full game beyond an RP. Like I've been working on a fan game for years, and I came to a point where I realized, like, if I'm spending years of my life working on a project, and shouldn't I make something original? Shouldn't I? That's what I was inspired by Earthbound. Well, why am I making an Earthbound fan game? I should be making my own Earthbound.
Yeah,
Very nice.
So Earthbound was kind of the primary inspiration, like maybe like number one in your mind, or where there were others as well?
That Mario RPG with the platforming aspect.
Yeah.
And if you want to know why the game really took so long, incorporating this platforming element into an RPG may have been it's been something I've been chasing since I first played Mario RPG.
Yeah.
And you couldn't really do it in RPG Maker.
Yeah.
Like a platforming system.
That's
we
right.
made a kind of a janky one.
Yeah.
But for what we wanted, I knew I would have to recruit a team of other people and not try to do everything myself, because I'm not a programmer. I was using RPG Maker.
Yeah, right. Okay, so that's interesting to me because I'm not a programmer. And that's like the one thing that's ever really held me back, even going back to RPG Maker, because I didn't want to use the default battle system. I didn't like it.
Right.
And it was like, dude, like I don't know how to write the code to like change this. And I'm not interested in learning it. Right.
But you know what you want to do, but you don't know how to do it.
Make it happen. Yeah.
So what was your approach to that? I mean, was it just to kind of just link up with other people who maybe knew it, or did you try to learn it a little bit?
Well, that's why I figured, well, what can I do? I can make RPG Maker games. If I can make a proof of concept to get other people to be like, can we make something like this but better? They could at least see that I'm not just an idea guy. Like I made this. You could see it. You can see it. I have some videos of that old RPG Maker that are still on YouTube. I can send to you.
Sure.
It's funny to see it. But that's what I sent people to find our programmer and to build our original team. But this was years before we kickstarted and really what I would say began development. We kickstarted in 2019, and that's when the kind of like Shrine's Legacy. That's when the game really began in earnest once we had some money. And any of these people will tell you, even the Kickstarter budgets we all raised are really not enough to build a game.
That's one thing I wanted to ask was, you look at those totals and it's just like these games take years and years and years to make. This is the amount here is not even enough for the salary of one person for 1 year, like to really get by.
You should only ever spend your Kickstarter on art. End of story.
So
no exceptions.
That's what we did.
That's pretty much what we did too. Yeah.
It was so basically all that money that you raised on Kickstarter was used primarily for hiring an artist.
Just making it look better.
And our contractors paying to get quality art done. And while we're all putting in all of our hours, we're not paying ourselves.
Right.
I think that is so important for people to understand. I think people, I mean, certainly I would not have assumed that until you start thinking about that number. And then you start, wait a minute, but this has been years.
Yeah, 5 years.
I was
what does
a
that actually get you?
Yeah, I was a backer of the Kingdoms of the Kickstarter. That was in 2019. I think I did a video for it trying to promote it at the time. And I was like, oh man, this is going to be amazing. This is going to be great. And then, time goes on and you kind of, you're not thinking about it. I know you guys are sending updates and things like that monthly, but, I usually don't really even look at those too much. And I'm just kind of like, I trust them. The game will come out. It's going to be great.
Yeah,
but then all of a sudden it's 2025 and it's like, wait a second, that was 6 years ago. There's no way that money like actually carried 5 people for 6 or 7 years. Like, so people, I think people are not aware of the fact that even though you're maybe beating the original goal and like reaching these, stretch goals and things like that, it's really, really not enough to actually fund what you're doing. So how are you guys, and I mean, we'll stick with Roach here first, but then maybe we can kick it to the rest of the panel. I mean, how are you, is that part of why it takes so long? Because you're not able to do it full time, right? So
I actually finally hung up the broom after 13 years. This last school year is my first year not being a janitor since 2011.
Wow.
To help. Thank you. And not because I financially can, but because I realized if I really wanted to get this thing done, I had to devote more time than I even was doing on top of my full-time job to really bring it home. And we were almost there. I was just like, I'm ready to do this to bring us to the finish line. And that was kind of how we were able to finally lock in on a release coming this November.
Yeah. So, but how do you, I mean, that's a huge risk. I mean, right? Like you're leaving your full-time job to try to get it done. I mean, you start this as a passion project, but as soon as like the reality of a risky choice like that comes up, I mean, when does that start to interfere with the passion, if that makes sense? Or is the passion high enough? Obviously it was for you to do it anyways. And then how did you pivot? How did you adjust your life?
Well, one important aspect is it was a janitor job. It's which I loved actually, but it's not a high paying job. So, and it's a job that I feel like I could always return to if I had to, and that very well may be. But yeah, it's a job I really enjoyed because while it's a physical job, my mind was completely freed up to focus on all of the other tasks involved with making this game, where a broom in hand, empty mind, where I could focus on building this whole world.
This is why I tell people at my day job that I love boring work. I love boring day job work because my imagination is so active that I'm constantly thinking about creative ideas that I can put into my art, my game. So yeah, I get what you're saying there.
That's actually a really interesting point because like right now I work in a creative field. And so if I want to work on personal projects, whether it's this podcast or like the novel I've been writing or something, my mind is like way exhausted by the end of the day. And so there's not like a ton of motivation there, but I do remember having boring jobs,
physical,
right?
Yeah, or like an manual labor job.
Yeah, I used to drive a shuttle between like a hospital and like a train station to like bring employees over or give people rides. And that was where many of my best ideas came to me because I'm just sitting there driving in circles around this, hospital. Yeah. But like you said, your mind is then kind of free to explore. And so a lot of the inspiration kind of came to me during that. So I thought that was a great point. Okay. So let's kind of open this up to anybody at this point who kind of wants to speak. There may be a little bit of competition, but we'll figure it out.
I have one addendum to the previous topic, which I think is important, is that after a certain point, the need to keep yourself motivated is either negatively or positively, depending on your point of view, overtaken by the sunk cost.
Sure.
And you just have to finish because if you don't, then you're just like...
Don't think about the sunk cost.
Your wife will look at you like, so what were you doing all the time?
No.
That I think that's another great point too. I mean, you've put, many of you even more than a decade of time into this idea, and I think Alan, you were talking about like you've wondered why you haven't quit. I guess that's kind of my follow-up question to all of you here. You've worked on this thing forever. I'm sure there are points where it's just like, man, this is just not working out the way I thought, or where we're struggling with this particular aspect, or I didn't realize that this was going to be a hurdle we'd have to overcome. Like, what gets you through those moments? Maybe share, if you could, what one of those moments were for you and what got you through it.
I would say that the thing that gets me through hard development moments more than anything else is actually watching people play the game. One of the things that like I realized pretty early on is that like if you just develop a long time and you're not seeing any kind of feedback or any kind of results from anyone, you're not getting that like sense of enjoyment from someone playing the game, like you get super dry super fast. So what I would do is I just like get people that I know local here in Tuscaloosa and just like, hey, come just play test my build, right? Like, and give me feedback. You don't have to give me like super elaborate or anything like that. I just need to like engage with the player and see kind of the end state a little bit. And that would generally it's inspiring if they're having a good time, which they don't always, right? But if they do, you're having a great time, and that's inspiring. Plus, like it's helpful, right? You're seeing how things are going, and you're able to make adjustments. And so yeah, I think that was very early on in game development. I did not do that as much. Like I didn't quite realize the importance of like seeing people actually play the game. That it changed a lot for getting me through Roblox.
Does it help if you had a demo out there? Did that help any? Did you put a demo out, didn't you?
I did. Yeah.
Did that help any?
Well, that actually came late enough that I'm not sure that itself was a big factor. Going to MagFest, by the way, like watching a lot of people play your game, that's amazing. And it's a real nice thing to see a lot of complete strangers, go through and play your game that maybe don't feel any compulsion to be polite to you. A lot of them do, but some of them don't. And so people are giving you a little, you're just getting some real feedback, and it's a lot of fun. And meeting other indie devs is a lot of fun too. But
yeah, that's where we met you and Pat, who are both in this call right now.
Actually, I remember
in person. I should say.
I remember asking Chris because I was a patron of Resident Arc. Hey, Chris, how did you get him to review Adventures of Chris? And Chris is like, oh, you should go to this Discord called Something Classic and check it out. And I was like, oh, okay. And it's just kind of, well, here I am today. So thank you, Chris. I appreciate it.
It worked.
I guess for me, it's like, I think I hate working day jobs more than I do making games, is how I get over the hard parts of making games. I can't stand alarm clocks. I cannot stand getting up and going to work for someone else. I feel I am better as my own boss, as an entrepreneur, than I am working for other people, listening to other people, which my current day job, my boss is great. I don't have a bunch of managers breathing down my neck, which is different from the past. But even still, getting up, going to work, it's just not for me. I want to wake up on my own schedule and do my own thing. And I love it. It's frustrating how long it has taken us to make Shrine's Legacy. It really is. But I do love making art. I like writing stories. Like Chris said, I like seeing people engage with my art, with the video game that we're making. It's very gratifying, and I don't know, that's just what keeps me going, I guess, because I hate working for other people more than I do working on a game. I guess
lately, so I worked as a cashier for many years and managed to quit that to work on freelance programming. The downside of that is, as was kind of mentioned earlier, it's like another creative thing, so it is challenging sometimes, I'll say, to stay motivated. And I have to give myself some time to breathe. Sometimes, even if I'm working like almost constantly, I still have to like stop sometimes and just do nothing, or like take a walk or something, just so I'm not completely drained mentally. I mean, I kind of am anyways, but it gives me just enough juice to keep moving, I guess.
So...
once we're done with the game, I'm definitely going to be taking.
When you're feeling that way, right? Have there been moments, like Chris was saying, where someone picks up Shrine's Legacy or gives you a piece of feedback, or maybe something else, where it's just like, there it is, there's the spark I needed to keep going?
I don't know if I'd call it completely a full-on spark, but it definitely helps a lot, I'll say.
So I think
a lot.
Like, people are beta testing the game right now in our Discord, and they're giving us feedback. It's not like a bunch of people. It's a few very dedicated people, and I don't know. I think it's motivating.
It is definitely motivating.
It's motivating to get this game to as good as we can before launch. It's not going to be exactly where we want it to be on launch, but as they say, you're your own worst critic. But hopefully most people enjoy it whenever it comes out. So,
okay,
yeah.
How about you, Roach or Pat? How do you get over those hurdles, and what were maybe some of the toughest hurdles that you guys had?
Well, one of the toughest things for me was over such a long development is resisting the urge to like modify the design and incorporate all of your great new ideas you just had last week. And like you have some flexibility, and of course you always want to, you're constantly being creatively filled up, but staying true to what I pitched everyone on. I got a lot of spark from having art come in every time one of my contractors gets something done. When I see any of them, they start getting excited about it.
Yeah,
it becomes like we're all giving each other this feedback loop of like, we're making something that's more than the sum of its parts.
That's actually really cool. That reminds me of the story Tetsuya Takahashi on Xenogears, actually, where he's feeling like, oh man, this is not turning out the way I wanted it to. And then he hears a piece of music from Mitsuda in that part. And it's like, oh, it works now. Oh, it's great. You know, inspired by the people you're working with. I love that answer.
Yeah, I mean, this is a story I've trotted out a few times, but I've never wanted to do anything other than make video games in any serious way. From the time I was 9, I played Secret of Mana, and I was, like, it's difficult to convey to people who weren't there what the media landscape in North America was like in 1994, and how something like Secret of Mana seemed like it was really sort of pre-anime in the US. It was like it came from another planet. It was just this amazing thing. I was just like, I just knew immediately. I'm just playing it, seeing the opening crawl, playing for the first 30 minutes. Like, oh, I want to. I'm a 9-year-old, but like, this is what I want to do with my life. And that feeling didn't really waver too much. And so that keeps me going. And it's it can be good to have those convictions, and it can be bad because sometimes the video game industry goes into recession. It's like I can't do anything else. Like I've put all my eggs in this basket. So what am I going to do? If nobody wants to hire, everyone thinks that everyone's waiting for 2 years because AI is going to eliminate coders and writers.
Right. Everyone assumes that who doesn't know how to code or write.
Right. Yeah. I mean, but guys with money are doing that, and so if you're all in on making video games, it helps you keep going. And I've never had trouble with the keep going part, but you having that blessing also gives you a curse in that if anything happens to the industry, you're in real trouble because like your whole livelihood could be in danger. But in terms of like just like what is the struggle and how do you get through it? For me, it was just always just things taking so much longer than you think they're going to take. Just always every piece of content. And even though we stuck to our GDD really stringently, we would say our vision was always 80-20, like 80% of the vision must stay as it is, can't change it. But then 20%, when you get to the actual scene you're making of the battle or whatever, the dungeon, there's 20% wiggle room in the sense that like once you start making it, you're going to realize a few things.
Yeah.
And then you get good ideas, but then the good ideas are often almost always adding scope. And even though we try, are one of the pillars, and probably the pillar of Quartet is brisk pacing. We always wanted to be as brisk as possible. We were going for that golden age JRPG aesthetic. But even as we did it, it was just like, well, this scene just isn't working. And so there's like a scene in chapter 7 in Navarro's Pass where someone is supposed to show up and give you a ton of exposition. And the script had the exposition. And then I got there and I was like, this isn't working at all. We need to do this exposition, but we need to do it as an interactive flashback. And so there you go. There's, 3 weeks of extra scope. And so like that for me was the struggle. Not so much as can I keep going? Yes, I can. But how can I deal with the intense frustration of having to deviate from the plan or having things just take longer? Like certain things we knew, the sequence, if you'll know what I'm talking about, of chapter 10, where sort of a lot of fireworks happen. There's 2 of those. That we knew. I was like, oh, each one of those the first one took 10 days, and I knew it would. And the second one took 3 weeks. But I knew that was going to happen, so that was fine. But for me, yeah, like I said, the real problem is when there's unexpected scope, and you just like, oh, my plan was to work for 3 days on Quartet this week and make money the other 2 days. And now the trouble is that like I need to my plans have to change because I need to be able to feed my kids.
Yeah.
So that was a struggle for me, just like balancing all of that. Never did I want to keep going because I always wanted to keep going.
Yeah.
But rather I have to make myself stop because I have to earn money and pay this mortgage.
Yeah. Okay. There's 2 questions swirling in my mind, and I want to try to get them out before I forget them. So the first is, and you can take these in any order or take one or the other, up to you, whatever you feel inspired to say. What is something now that you've come all the way through the process, you're now either at the end of development, game's coming out soon, or you've just released, that you just did not expect at all? Just something that no matter how much we all grew up being huge nerds and reading interviews from devs and thinking we kind of understand the process without having actually done it. That you encountered that was just like, that is not something I would have ever thought would have been, something that I would have had to, account for or deal with. So that's question one. Question two requires a little bit of a setup. I was just watching last night. It was like, I can't remember the name of the show. I think it's America's or Next Gen Chef or something like that. I watch some of these reality competition shows with my wife on Netflix and stuff like that to unwind. And these people are obviously incredibly talented. Like every single one of these cooks, every single one of these chefs are amazingly talented. They work in like world-class restaurants and things like that. But now they're kind of put into these, situations and constraints that are really difficult. And one guy puts out a dish that every single one of the judges thought was disgusting, just thought was horrible. And they confront him about it up front. Like, why did you think putting these flavor profiles on a plate was okay? I mean, it was extremely blunt criticism. And he said, I would not have put something out there if I did not think it was delicious. Obviously, they're tasting it, before they put it out there, and he thought it was good. And they just universally slammed it as being just something that was so baffling to them as a choice that I cannot believe you would have done this. Now, obviously, maybe you guys haven't gone through something quite that extreme, but I wonder what it's like if you have an element of your game that you think is really great or that you think is working, but you're getting feedback from your beta testers or from other people at conferences that are just universally saying, we don't like this. And how do you deal with that?
The most boring answer is that we treated everything statistically.
Yeah.
And we just have a spreadsheet, right? People say things, we put them in a spreadsheet. And the nature of feedback is such that there is always a vociferous minority who's going to scream at you and write paragraph upon paragraph and try and rally other people and contact you on social media, not necessarily an attack, but like just sort of laying across the tracks of your development, insisting that you do certain things. And if you have a spreadsheet detailing feedback, what you'll notice is that that person, that those complaints tend to exist at a threshold below like 3% of feedback, people who give feedback. And because of that, you can not necessarily dismiss that, but just deprioritize things that are not statistically powerful. Because, it's not like in your example that you've given, obviously all of the judges reviled the dish. However, I will also note that reality television is constructed.
Sure.
And I know there are people who have violated their NDAs about American Idol to say that that they deliberately got rid of people for the sake of good television who were far more talented than any of the people who were made. So there's that. Always keep that in mind. If you're expecting that model to transfer to, your own proprietorship.
Sure.
But also just take feedback statistically and always just respond to things that are the most widespread. But when you do get something widespread, and we did, we had that happen several times, you just respond to it. But at that point, the key thing to remember, and this is maybe the biggest lesson, one of the biggest lessons that I've learned as I've matured in my game development experience, is that you get the feedback, you have the statistical power, but then you need to make the smallest possible change that will change that problem. Because small changes have big effects. Like we changed the beginning of Alexandra's chapter to have a lot more sort of like cozy, you'd call it. It's not really cozy, but that sort of genre of exposition at the beginning, because that we found that people weren't really getting the story in her chapter. They weren't understanding the tone, and so they felt like disjointed, and they didn't know what Alexandra wanted. And so we added 4 minutes of content, and none of it was very high production, like in terms of like values of like, did we have to spend a lot of money? We didn't really have to spend much money on that at all. So we made a 4-minute change, and we got much better metrics afterwards, and we didn't have to buy a bunch of new assets for it. We just used what we had in a new way, and we added 4 minutes of game time, but it really changed the response of everyone who played it.
That's really interesting. I just have to say this because I think Tyler might have put this out as a poll, like which of the opening scenarios has been your favorite so far or something like that. And I think Ben's was like blowing everybody else away, but Alexandra's was, I think, the lowest. It was like 3% or something like that. And that was my favorite of the opening chapters. I really, really liked it. And I was getting the sense that people weren't like really getting it or something. But that's really interesting to hear that was one of the chapters that you were getting that kind of feedback on.
One very tiny note to add to that is also always consider your data source.
Yes.
Populations congregate together. So like in our Steam feedback and our written reviews, Alexandra's chapter did much, much better than on the polls on Twitter and Discord. And the probable reason for that, the low level detection of that, is that women didn't respond on social media
as much,
which totally makes sense. It's a hellscape for women on social media. Why would they want to expose themselves to any kind of controversy? But once we did, okay, so always consider the demographics of your data sources. Because we did, Alexandra's chapter did a lot better in other metrics.
That's great. Anybody else want to take that one on?
I would say, I think the thing for me that was sort of the biggest surprise, I think that was like your first question, right? The thing that I didn't see coming. And I think your mileage will vary on this. Like, this may not be anybody else's experience, but was just how fragile players' experience was when playing games. I don't know that it would be if I had strictly emulated a pre-existing title. Like, if I had been like, I'm just going to do Mario RPG and it's just going to be that, and everyone coming in knows it's that. But I was like, I'm going to do something different, right? I'm going to do real-time combat. And my initial pitch to myself on this was, I want you to control a World of Warcraft classic party in real time via a Chrono Trigger interface. Like that was what I wanted, because I love both of those games and I was trying to kind of get them to merge together. But the whole thing was I was constantly found myself fighting an uphill battle with playtesters who, because it wasn't exactly like any other game they had played, I had to really, really work hard to tutorialize people to get them to not expect it to be like Bastion. Don't expect it to be like Final Fantasy Tactics. Don't expect it to be like whatever, because it's not. Like, I mean, it's kind of like FF7R. It's kind of like Tales of, but it's also, there's differences, right? So like and I'm not a AAA game with a huge budget. You're playing FF7R and it's throwing paragraphs of text at you. I think players say, okay, well, if I'm having trouble, that's on me, because they spent millions and millions of dollars on this game. I'm sure they've tested out the wazoo. I trust this game. When they're playing my game, the trust level is not as high. They've never heard of me. It's an indie title. So I just realized I had to work really, really hard at getting the tutorial to where people like, and I'm not saying you should necessarily have to do this, but I created a character named Mike, who is the trainer, right?
I love that.
He keeps showing up in the mind of the hero to just flat out tell you how to play the game. Because it would have been more clever to have like an oblique way of tutorializing or whatever. I'm just like, I couldn't risk it. I'm just like, I'm going to tell you how to play, like, because you're going to think, if you come from Final Fantasy, that sleep is a useless skill that you should never use. In fact, you should use it all the time, right? And so I just have Mike tell you that. Sleep, use it. People still don't, by the way. Yes. Yeah, no, some players did pick up on it. And I think sometimes Pat has to remind me constantly about the statistic thing, right? Like, just because someone said that doesn't mean that's what everybody thinks. Like, my instinct is the person saying the negative thing, they're saying what everybody else is thinking. Right? Everyone else is just too polite to say it, right? And that's not really always or mostly ever an accurate way of looking at things, but it's just my personality goes that direction. So you got to watch out for that. But really, like, communicating, you gotta over communicate things and watch like what confuses people. People can hide from you their subjective experience of the game while they're playing it. They can tell you they're having a better time than they are. They can't hide from you when they're confused. Right. So you can notice all those points and be like, all right, I have to communicate that better. If someone's having trouble figuring out whose turn it is in your turn-based RPG, right? Like, that can happen, right? Like you add more signals, right? Add a little sound, add like really work at getting them to understand what's going on. So when they're playing it, they just think, oh, this is so easy, this is so natural. They have no idea, how much work had to go into making this so smooth that they don't have to think about it. Pat likes to talk about Secret of Mana and how many signals there are to let you know that your meter is refilled and you can strike again. And just like, I never really thought of that, because you just do it, right? You're just playing the game and you know it. But there's like a lot of little flashes and sounds and lights to let you know, hey, you can swing your sword again. Stuff like that.
There's a couple of things you said there that I thought were really interesting. First of all, I feel like there is a pretty strong bias against unknown, small, sort of like indie projects.
Yeah.
I noticed this in a couple of reviews, not only for your games, Chris, which infuriated me reading them, but for Quartet as well. And there's one that I see a lot that really bothers me, just in particular. And that is, this game doesn't do anything revolutionary or innovative necessarily, but and it's just like, oh my goodness, like, it's almost like I get the sense that they would only say that about a project like the types that you guys are making, as if that's even something that. This is a game that's trying to emulate the types of games that were made like 30 years ago. As if you're trying to like push the needle in some direction and like totally reinvent the wheel or something.
And if you do try that, they don't appreciate that either.
That's exactly what you just said too. Was there's still an expectation that they want it to play a certain way. I think people often will say, in their, voicing their opinions about something, this doesn't do anything interesting or new. Yet, I don't think that that's what players actually even want. What they really want is to play something that they're familiar with, so that they can feel like they're having success when they're playing, right? Like, this plays like something I know.
I don't know if you ever read the screenwriting book Save the Cat from back in the day, but the way it summarizes that phenomenon is what audiences want is the same, only different.
Yeah.
Right. And like they want exactly the same thing. They just don't want to believe that it's the same thing.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of cynical, but I think there is some truth to that.
No, I totally think there is. And that's the second thing that kind of came to me as you were talking. Was I think maybe a lot of people don't realize how much game development is almost babysitting players in that sense. Like you're not just designing a level that you think is really interesting or cool, or that, adds to your theme for the game, or that is sort of like is creatively interesting to you. You're spending so much time trying to like account for all of these different people who are going to come into it with such a range of different levels of experience playing games. Mm-hmm. And all of them need to understand this thing that to you is like, oh, but that's so intuitive. That's so obvious. But it's not. And so like, how much of game development ends up being you babysitting your players versus just making something that, you find interesting.
I should be clear too. Like, it can actually, for me at least, it's actually fun to solve these problems.
Yeah.
Right. Like, so I don't look at it necessarily with resentment towards like having to tutorialize. Well, okay, sometimes I do, but like having to tutorialize players a lot, because I think if you can solve it, right, it's actually a really fun challenge, right? Like communicating with the player, making that connection is to some extent kind of the goal, right? Like when the player makes the connection, like I'm having so much fun right now because I was struggling. I couldn't figure out. And then I remembered that I have this move and I used it and I beat the boss and it felt so good. And you're listening to them and you're like, this is perfect, right? This is like exactly that thing that I wanted the player to get. And so there is a little bit of that, there's a challenge of making the game in that respect, right? Yeah. And so I don't want to make it sound like it's just just bitterness, I guess.
Sure, I think that's important to bring up. Yeah. Anybody else had anything that came to your mind as we were talking? I know I've asked a lot of questions at this point. So.
Yeah. I mean, just to give the smallest possible snippet is that there's many writing instructors and art instructors who say make sure the audience knows you meant it that way, right? So that's the short version of what I perceive to be Chris's meaning. It says they when you're an indie, they don't believe that you meant it that way. Like, oh, this is a mistake.
That's a great way to put it.
We meant it that way.
Right. That's a great way to put it. It's like they assume because you're an indie dev that you made a mistake.
Yeah.
Or that you didn't think of that, or that you aren't skilled enough or something.
Yes.
Versus you have to communicate, no, I did that on purpose.
Yeah.
There's intentionality in a lot of what we're doing there.
Yeah. That's a really great way to put it.
That's funny.
Actually, there's the opposite experience sometimes. Like I said, people are beta testing Shrine's Legacy right now, and we're experiencing a lot, especially as we update frantically, we're experiencing a lot of people being like, oh, well, I didn't know that would actually happen. I didn't know you would actually think of that and do that. So that's a cool feeling too, actually.
So they're giving you the feedback where they didn't expect you as an indie dev to have done something like that, and so it surprised them. And
well, that's fun because what that's doing is it's building trust. As they have those surprises, like whoa, they thought of that. Whoa, they pulled that off. Then they will slowly start to trust you more throughout the game and stop questioning, did they mean to do this or not? Like you kind of have to establish that from the beginning.
Right.
Maybe the intro of your games is like super important.
Like, what if you go back and talk to this character? Oh, they actually say something different. They react. Or, oh, their clothes change when you change their armor. Like, we've been getting feedback like that, and that's a cool feeling. So, like the opposite of like, clearly you should have intended this. Yeah,
I feel like probably over like half of the reviews for Adventures of Chris that were positive include the word "actually," "surprisingly."
You just got to deal with that one. Because people are surprised when an indie game delivers. They maybe shouldn't be, but it's not like it has that AAA stamp of approval that this game, at least, like you never really know what you're getting with an indie game.
And look at some of these AAA games, how they're releasing. I mean,
I know,
like patches and all sorts of problems. Yeah,
exactly. We haven't heard from you in a bit, Roach. Did you have any thoughts on any of the stuff we've been talking about?
I mean, sure. Going back to like what the biggest surprise was for me, and to speak to some of like watching the players play, like when we added platforming into our original game design document, like there's a lot that comes with that you don't think about. Like the player can get on top of every single tree, every single building, every character. So like they can completely break open sometimes levels. And as long as they're not doing sequence breaks, I'm generally okay with it, as that's them expressing movement through the characers. And that's like kind of cool.
Yeah,
that's super cool.
That's actually a good
you got to
point.
really take things into account. Though.
if you originally designed something speedy without the platforming aspects in mind, and then you're like, okay, now we're going to add the platforming aspects. You get some of those like speed runners who will like figure out how to sequence break Ocarina of Time from just that first boss in Goma, and then all of a sudden they're at the end of the game or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's just like, whoa, like I didn't realize how could you even account for that? I mean, how much play testing, I guess, are you guys able to really do, and do you think it's sufficient to sort of cover for,
like, how much data do you get from these beta testers?
I mean, we have our Kickstarter backers, and some of them are at the level where we let them help with testing. But really, like, QA is a job that you're supposed to pay people for.
Right.
I wish that we had a whole QA team, and I'm sure they could find a bunch more stuff. But we do the best we can.
Yeah. Anybody else have experiences with testing or whatever that revealed some surprising things?
I kind of just want to add to what Roach said about Kickstarter backers and testing. Don't expect hardly anything necessarily from Kickstarter backers testing. Yeah, we sent out a bunch of beta keys to Kickstarter backers, and we've got very, very little feedback from them.
Yeah. And these people are they're some of your most core supporters. They already have buy-in on the game.
Right.
Yeah.
So like it's a little different than like at MagFest when I had hundreds of people playing the demo for the first time. It was really interesting to see if they came away with that buy-in or not by the end. And a lot of them did, and that was really cool.
Yeah, that's
nice. Great. And yeah, I'm not saying these people aren't going to play the game eventually, or maybe I'll get like the day before we launch or something. But like as of now, we have received very little feedback directly from the Kickstarter backer beta testers. I want to make that part clear because we have gotten feedback from other people who we've brought on like separately.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to kind of mention that because that's something I didn't quite expect, but in hindsight, it makes a lot of sense.
Makes sense.
A lot of people probably want to play the game when it's done.
Right.
Or they want to just, play a little bit of it and maybe they don't care enough to like actually.
And testing is work. Testing is work.
It is, absolutely.
They don't want to fill out a survey and.
Right.
I hate filling out surveys. I'll just say that right now. Like anybody sends me a survey, doesn't matter what service it was. I'm not filling that out. I don't care.
If it's a one question survey, if it's a one question, I might do it.
I just wanted to point that out because it's from a developer's point of view, it's not necessarily an obvious thing.
Yeah. Funny thing, Joe, we're close to October 7th, our launch.
Yeah.
He hasn't played through the game from beginning to end just to play it and see how it feels.
In a long time.
He hasn't had time. He's just fixing things and adding things that are necessary. I'm doing all the testing and I'm reporting to him. But I'm happy to say it's getting better and better and more stable.
All the testing between the two of us.
Yeah.
Within playing through the full game. I'm playing the game in chunks.
In pieces,
to fix specific stuff.
Little bites.
I haven't got to play it from beginning to end in a while, even though I keep telling myself it's about time I need to do this. Mm-hmm. But there's always really important stuff I need to get
Oh yeah.
I didn't play Quartet in linear order from beginning to end until the last month before we shipped.
It's crazy.
That's just not how you experience your own game. I played every chapter dozens of times.
Yeah.
But never played the whole thing as one continuous experience until we shipped in late August, and I did not until probably early August did I play the whole thing in order.
Did you find anything surprising in that process? Like, I kind of do a similar thing, like while I'm writing, for instance, like I kind of break them down into individual chapters. It's not in one document. I'll read each one of those things as kind of a separate self-contained thing.
Right.
But then when you put it all into one and you're just like here to here to here, you discover things, I feel like, pacing wise or whatever. Yeah. Did you guys have that experience?
For sure. I mean, there were a lot of setups and callbacks. I'm a big outliner. I have a high level outline, a detailed outline, and then high level and detailed outlines for each chapter. And then I write it, and then I revise it, and then when I'm the one building the scene, so I get another crack at it right then. And so I always find something new. I'm very much a process oriented person. And then, but when I went through the entire game again in linear order, I was like, oh, some of these callbacks and payoffs don't pay off very hard, or they just they're too subtle, or they're not long enough. I don't hammer them hard enough. And there's definitely places where especially Tyler had to tell me let go with the scene a little bit, let the scene run a little bit, because we were always focused on brisk pacing. And so there were definitely places where I added very late some extra dialogue in a scene because the pace we found when we played the whole game is okay, this game is brisk enough, so maybe we can linger a little bit here and there and add a few little spots.
Especially when your players should be invested in your story and characters at a certain point, you can get away with making scenes a little bit longer than you might think.
Yeah. Letting it breathe a little bit more than you would think.
Yeah. Don't be afraid of pauses, people.
Yeah.
It would be helpful.
Slow down. sometimes. Really.
I like that you're saying that, because you did the Shrine Legacy, right?
Yeah.
I noticed that in that game. I'm
Yeah.
like, there's moments that are happening in between the dialogue. It's not just box to box to box to box. Even at the very beginning with the fountain and stuff, it's like there's pauses. There's moments where it's just a few seconds, and then they pick up again. It's really cool. Actually, I thought you did a good job with that.
Yeah. It was very intentional.
And that's a big reason why this game's taking such a long freaking time, actually. All those pauses.
Making sure all the pauses, because you don't want it to be too long. Yeah.
Yeah. No, but think about Final Fantasy VI, right? Like, there's a lot of pauses.
You're right.
Characters putting their heads down, and just like, it's not a 3D game, but you can kind of feel what those little pixels are feeling just by their little small actions.
Yeah.
Well, and some of that too is to communicate who's talking, right? Like, I think you don't realize until you start laying out your own RPG scenes that if you don't have huge character portraits, right? You just have the name. Sometimes people lose the thread of who's talking, even with the name of the character there. So having the character do a little gesture each time, like, you don't know what's happening when you're a kid playing Final Fantasy VI. You're just like it's so smooth, and you're never confused. But they had to think through that, right? How do you know who's saying what?
Yeah, there's a lot of intentional blocking almost going on there, where it's as we pass the dialogue, the character needs to step forward or turn around or face the other way, or do some kind of gesture. That's very true.
Yeah, and to real quick add to what Chris said, even though our characters have portraits, I think does Kingdoms of the Dump have portraits?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, even though our character text boxes have portraits, we still employ that Final Fantasy VI Chrono Trigger approach to cutscenes where the characters will pause, and I think it's still important, even if you have portraits.
It makes it feel more personal. Like you were saying, you feel what the characters are feeling more instead of it just feeling like you're reading text.
Yeah,
sure.
Yes, I like that.
Yeah, that's part of that stage play aspect of these type of games.
Yeah,
the staging
very much had that theatrical, like a stage play sort of feel to them. And particularly 6. I mean, 6 they had the spotlights that would come down on characters.
That's right.
It's very much designed that way.
And sometimes even more like a puppet show, because their emotions are so big, right? You think of like Chrono and his big surprise gesture.
Right. Yeah. That's like the theater acting, so they can see it from the back row.
Exactly right. Okay, so
I just wanted to quickly say it's like it's not what you expect. You expect adding pauses would make a scene feel like it's longer, because it literally is longer, but it's actually the other way around.
It makes it feel shorter and more engaging.
But that's interesting.
Crazy, even though it's longer.
Just wanted to throw that last little thought in.
Yeah, that's actually true.
Yeah,
it's something that might feel counterintuitive at first, but it's very true.
Well, when you're just hitting A through blocks of text without any pause, sometimes it can feel long and tedious.
Yes, that's good point.
When things are developing naturally, even though it is longer, I don't know, it just doesn't feel.
You're not thinking about how long it's taking. Yeah. It's just you're enjoying it. Okay, so I want to ask one more thing to everybody before we wrap up. And this is something I struggle with big time. I think anybody who tries a large creative project will be able to relate to this. But it's when you decide that it's good enough, when you decide that it's time to finish.
Yeah.
I think anybody is their own worst critic. They're really thinking about how can I polish this and make it as perfect as possible. Each of you had extremely long development cycles. And I'm sure there are many things either now that you're wrapping up or have already released that you would like to go back and touch up or polish a bit more or adjust. Maybe even you've heard some feedback after release and you're like, oh, you know what? Like, that would have been really great if I had thought of that, or I wish I could change that. And I know in the age of updates and things like that, there are areas to do that.
Although it's probably less acceptable for a book.
Sure. Yeah, you can't really, well, I guess there are additional versions later on. But my point is that one of the things that I struggle a lot with is I think there have been 3 times now where I thought it was done. And I even went through the whole process of professional editing and beginning to pitch to literary agents and things like that. And then I was like, nah, I'm going back and I'm going to add a whole big part here and here. when you're an indie dev and you don't have bosses at your dev studio, your AAA dev studio, who are like, it needs to be done by this date, and we're spending this much money, and there's all this pressure there. You can kind of dictate when it's done. How did you decide that? And was that a difficult thing for you to do?
I think this is extremely difficult. And like anyone who's worked on a game or a project for this long, there's those points where you feel like you're just like pushing clay around. You're not like moving forward on, and a lot of times it could just feel like that. So if you try to make meaningful progress, each day as you work towards climbing that mountain, but I found it extremely hard to finally say like, yeah, this is done. The game is coming out. We're moving on. But it's also really exciting to finally see the crest of that mountain after so long in the trenches. So like that gives you a big surge of energy towards the end that I've heard before, people saying things coming together, like, as the project wraps up. And I'm seeing that happen for us as we get very close. Everything is slotting into place now. And that's so cool to see after like years of one foot in front of another.
Yeah.
So was that a process for you, Roach, where you realized like, okay, it's there? Or was that something that you had to like put your foot down and say, it's time, like it's time that it needs to come out. We need a date for release. And was picking that date something that you felt good about or something that was nerve-wracking?
No, it's nerve-wracking because like as a creative person, I could spend another couple of years in this world just adding more and making it so cool. And it's like at a certain point, is that going to make the game any better? Maybe, but like there's a lot there. Like, you just have to eventually say, this is it. This is the art. I don't think any piece of art is ever like done to the artist's specifications.
Sure.
Yeah, that's interesting.
How about you, Pat? You and I were talking about this a little bit, I think a couple months ago, and kind of laughing about it. What was that process like for you?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we're really big planners. And one of the advantages of having a really big concrete plan and not deviating, even when you're tempted to, not deviating too much, right? That 80-20 rule, is that eventually you have completed the plan. And the game is either good enough or it's not. And in many ways, when we got to the end of Quartet, and some critics have mentioned this, that it's a certain kind of game, right? It's a brisk. It's not like Trails. It's not like Persona. We were not trying to make a game like either of those things. We wouldn't have had the money for one thing, but it was not like those things. And so when we got to the end, we're like, oh, well, this might not like simply, not every character gets an equal payoff. We have 8 characters and they don't all get an equal payoff at the end. Alexandra, the youngest character, has the furthest to go because she's so young and naive.
Right.
And so her optional quest is much more epic than the oldest character, Ben.
Sure.
And that's just because, they're in different places in their lives. And we wanted to honor the truth of that more than we wanted to give everyone an epic social link style story where they, achieve, Freudian or Jungian apotheosis, right? That's a different amount of scope, a different type of thing. And also it helps that all of the characters in Persona are teenagers.
Sure.
So they all have, places to go. Our one teenager did have a very long way to go. But most characters are not like that. And so, we saw that and we're like, this is the game we plan to make. It's brisk. It's very reminiscent, for at least for us, of Final Fantasy VI, and that whole golden age. And at this point, people are either going to like it or not. We did a lot of polish. There's always a little bit of polish you could do, but eventually, at some point, we're just you get to diminishing returns on how much polish can do for you, especially without thousands of people playing it and telling you where there's issues like bugs and things like that. Mostly bugs.
Sure. Yeah.
So we completed the plan. We met the vision, and we said, okay, this is what it is. And would I like to release a bunch of DLC, like one of them, which is a an in-world roguelite that parallels the Stalin's Great Terror, yes, I would buy the game. If you want that too, you should buy the game and tell your friends to do it. I will release that DLC. It all makes sense in the story. But yeah, that's stuff that we could tack on later. There was a plan for that too, so we knew, the plan is complete. We're just going to have to entrust this to history now, which is incredibly grandiose and pretentious thing to say, but it is nevertheless true.
Yeah. How about you, Chris? At what point did you know the game was done or decide the game is done? And is that painful or good?
When I got sick of making it is when I decided that it was done. I think my experience is probably different from y'all's to some extent, in that when I'm in the process of making the game, I'm having a good time, and then eventually I'm just like I hit a wall a little bit, and I have it planned out, kind of like Pat. I have the outline, I have where I want to go, but I also I get I need to start wrapping this up, because I'm not going to have the energy to finish it if I don't. So in Adventures of Chris, I wound up not cutting very much, actually. But in Geo Mythica, I did wind up cutting some levels that I had planned. I wanted to do a whole city builder level and stuff like that. I had
cool.
big ideas, and I'm just I didn't think I could pull it off. I didn't think I had the energy to, and I hadn't promised them to anyone other than me. So if the demand was there, I could always add them in as a DLC or something later on, make more levels. So just I need to cut it off.
Mm-hmm. So it felt like a necessity for you. It was I need to stop.
Yeah. Well, you're like I said earlier, motivation is a scarce resource, right? I'd gone 4 years on it, but people had me okay, you need to add a little more, you need to get done, you need to push the date out so you can market it better, right? You can't just people it suddenly.
Yeah, right. Just shadow drop it on everybody. Boom, game's out.
Yeah, hey, check it out. Doesn't work that way.
Yeah, right. How about you guys, Alan and Joe?
So we kind of have a publisher. They're not publishing games anymore, but we signed on with them, and they are technically our publisher. So in a way, we kind of do have a boss. Kind of. I mean, not really. They're not really our boss, but they stay hands off on the development a lot. So, and that's pretty great.
It still kind of gives us a little extra pressure to just get things done.
Sure. They need to make money.
Yeah.
So, but luckily we're all kind of on the same boat, the same page, where we're we just got to get this done this year.
We've worked on the game for so long that it's we can't work on it forever. We want to move on with our lives at some point and make new games and do new things. So
we want to keep supporting it after we launch it.
Definitely.
But we got to just get it out there, man. It's been too long, and I want to move on to a new project.
Yeah.
And hopefully this is the start of a career. But mostly it's just between our publisher and our sanity. It's just,
it's like Chris said, we just need to get it done.
What's wild? Hearing it's really nice to be an indie dev and to be able to take time and all of this stuff, but being your own boss to then decide when things need to be cut, that's something I haven't really thought of before.
That's tough.
Imagine if Tetsuya Takahashi was developing Xenogears without a boss, right? He's got this team and this stuff. At what point does he finally admit to himself, I have to cut this and this and this and this and this? Yeah. And how hard that is, right? Yeah. It's almost easier when you have a boss because you have an excuse of
they're making me do it.
I gotta cut this. But it's when you don't have that boss.
That's helped us with our publisher. So you're absolutely right. Having a boss does put that pressure on you.
It's good. It's good because otherwise, I don't know how long we would be working on this game if we were the only ones who are pressuring ourselves. I mean, like I said, it's still like we are reaching our breaking point in a lot of ways. So it's like I think we would, at least by next year, we would have been like, we have to release the game. But I don't know. It's a different universe. I can only speculate.
Well, good luck.
Okay. I want to get one more question in here before we wrap up. And that is, now that you've all been through the process, right? This long process, whether it was your first project or second or whatever, you can speak to us and then I guess also kind of in proxy to the rest of the audience. If Kason and I, we come to you, we say, we're going to make a game, guys. We want to make a game.
Hypothetically speaking.
What is the most important piece of advice that you would give to us other than don't do it?
Darn it. No.
I would say the team is as important as anything else. The people working with you have to have the same vision and same idea of what you're doing. So you're moving together as a team instead of pulling in different directions, or you're never going to get anywhere.
Plan a lot. I'm going to speak for Tyler here. I know he wanted me to say this. Making the game is not the game. It's not fun. It's not going to be fun like playing a game is. Give up on that notion right now. And the last 10% takes 50% of the time.
That's definitely true.
That's interesting.
With we would always say this with
I remember this.
filmmaking and things like that. Especially with visual effects work. It was always that last 10% was like what sells it.
It's true.
And it's the hardest to get right.
Because it wouldn't take that long for us to build a scene and create the visual effects that we wanted to do. But in order to get it to be convincing, that took
last
quite a bit longer.
10% was always the hardest. So I agree with that. Chris, you got any advice for us? We're making a game. Tell us what we need to know.
Yeah, well, you took my first idea, right? But I guess it just it goes back to what I said before about like figuring out like what are the things about the process that are going to keep you going, that you enjoy, and don't front load it all. Don't do all the fun stuff first, so that all that's left is the slog. Yeah. Right. Like that, and this is very different for me and some other indie devs and how they approach things. I'm like, I gotta spread out the part that's fun, or else I'm not gonna make it.
Yeah. Alan and Joe, what would be your advice to us? We're making a game. We're making an RPG. What should we do?
Oh no, you're making an RPG. Oh, good idea. No, I would say start networking as soon as possible. As soon as you start getting your work out there. Doesn't matter how terrible it is. Just start posting on social medias. And that's the business side of things. If you want to make a game and you want it to be successful, at least modestly for you, you need to start networking, get your game out there, start talking to people. Joe said earlier, make smaller projects.
Well, you're supposed to let me say that after you were done.
Connect with other developers. It's so important. And don't give up. Be consistent. If it's your drive, it's your passion, you got to be consistent. You have to post consistently on social media. You can't take long breaks because it's a competitive market. It's a saturated market right now.
Yeah.
If you're not consistent, then it's not going to matter. Like people aren't going to pay attention. They're going to lose interest. The algorithm's going to destroy you if you're inconsistent. Yay, the algorithm.
Right.
So be consistent, networking, and art is king. That's still a big one for me. Like I've definitely learned your art style and how your game looks is like, it's super important to help you stand out and get people's attention. So I don't know, Joe.
Yeah, well, make smaller projects.
You said it. Yes.
Definitely. So just to elaborate on that a little bit, like eventually you want to work up to making something bigger. If you want to make RPGs, you probably don't only want to make little RPGs. So don't take my advice as never ever make a big game, but work up to it. Don't do what me and Alan did and
don't do that.
Have to keep replacing all of your assets with better assets because you get better at making games and stuff. Make the bad game first, release it, get feedback, learn faster, and you'll probably be able to release something like me and Alan with the same amount of effort in less time, because you'll just be getting better feedback, and you'll be making some money along the way, even if it's not very much to start with.
The networking one is huge for me. This is something that is just so difficult for my personality. I'm very much a hermit, and it's hard for me to get out there and meet other people. But I think you're right. I think meeting other people who are in the same position as you, who are doing the work and playing each other's games and giving each other feedback, and I think that is one of the best pieces of advice that personally I could receive, and something that I'm not good at and something I need to be better at. So
watch Chris Zukowski videos for help with like marketing and stuff, because he's really on point with like things that are actually important and things that are people think are important, but they end up actually wasting a lot of time doing.
Sure.
Like even like we're successful on Twitter, but a lot of people are not able to really get any traction on Twitter, and they take that as, our game isn't worth anything. So
there's lots of different forums,
lots of other ways.
Yeah, that's a lot of people release very successful games, and they don't have a Twitter or a Reddit or YouTube videos, none of that.
I just want to say, as a kind of last piece here as we wrap up, that I have been following each of you and your development cycles and your games as they've come along the way, and I have just been so impressed by all of you and the work that you've done. I think all of you should feel really, really proud of what you've made.
I agree.
I have greatly enjoyed playing them. I have not played Kingdoms of the Dump yet. I know Roach did send me a demo back in the day, and I didn't respond. I feel bad for that. I was so busy at the time.
It looks really sweet, though. Like,
my
just
goodness,
the trailer looks really good.
I know it's going to be great.
It is good. I can confirm.
I can't wait, Roach.
And that was an old build, so I bet it's even better now.
It was buggy too, but I'll tell you, I could tell. Like, this is going to be great when it's done.
Thanks, guys. Thanks.
So I feel just extremely confident in recommending each one of these titles to any of our viewers who are watching this. Support indie devs, support great work. All of these games are great, and all of the work is really impressive. I did a video on it last week a little bit, but I just want to reiterate that. We've been showing footage of the games throughout this podcast that you're looking at. So go check them out. Quartet from Something Classic. Geo Mythica from Chris Ewan or Ewan Entertainment. Shrine's Legacy from Positive Concept Games. And Kingdoms of the Dump from Roach. So thank you guys for joining us. Really appreciate you taking the time. It's been a great conversation.
Thanks so much, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Likewise, thanks.
I'm sure we'll all be speaking again in the future.
Maybe after the games are over, I'd love to kind of do a recap. And that'd be fun.
That'd be great.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Sounds good.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you again.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.